Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the SwansCast podcast. And I would say breaking news, but it happened last night. But it's our first podcast since. But Michael Duff is gone, so wasn't expecting necessarily to do another manager turnaround so soon after the last one in the summer, which seemed to drag on for a long time in the summer with Russell Martin going. But here we are. The year hasn't finished yet. We're in December, and the 4th of December in the evening. So probably about 24 hours ago from when we're recording, actually, we heard the news that he is gone. Swansea have put a statement out to say Michael Duff has been sacked. And one day later, on the 5th, when we're recording now, we are kind of all wondering who's next. So, yeah, Lee's here to join me for this one. There won't be as much of our normal structure, I guess, because we're obviously going to focus on the big news, which is Duff leaving the Swans. We will look at the Huddersfield game, because obviously that is the last game he managed, and we'll pull some stuff from that might be relevant, and maybe just look at the state of the squad for the next manager, of who he will inherit and have to sort of turn the season around. But yeah, so initial thoughts then, Lee, on Michael Duff getting sacked.
I don't know. I think it's a bit of a sad day when your manager gets sacked. I think the majority of Swans fans are happy that it's happened, but it's just not a good day, is it? It just doesn't look great when you sack your manager, not even halfway through the season. So not a great position to be in, but not surprised. I was fully prepared to come on this week when we sort of arranged what day we were going to do this week after the Huddersfield game, and I was all fully prepared to say I think he's in trouble. I think me and you, we've tried to. We do tend to try and be positive. I've tried to sort of defend him quite a bit this season, but I think it got to a point where it was becoming really hard to defend him. Unfortunately, I was surprised at the timing though. I thought maybe he would have another 2 games, maybe 2 or 3 games. So when I heard the news yesterday, I was actually playing football at the time, and somebody on the sideline said, "Oh, he's been sacked." And I was thinking, I wasn't expecting it to happen so quick. I think he was in trouble, but the fact that it happened so quick is a bit more ruthless than we're used to. I think other managers have had some bad runs over the last couple of years and haven't had the same treatment. So it's a bit different. It's a bit more ruthless from us, I think, this year.
The run you're citing there is definitely Russell Martin going 24 games with 3 wins.
Yeah, but that's in recent memory. I think like Potter had a bad run, and Cooper had a bad run at some stage as well. It's just
second half of the season in Cooper's second year was tragic.
It just tends to be not like us to be that ruthless, but no disputes for me really. I think it was coming.
Yeah, I think with the other runs, Martin maybe had a few more games in him. When we get to the lower end of the table, perhaps where them decisions become more ruthless. The other two didn't quite get that deep with their bad run. Cooper did all the good work in the early part of the season and managed to hold on to a playoff, didn't he? So,
but the difference was with the other managers as well, is that I know like they went on bad runs, but they did have some credit in the bank as well. So like Russell Martin's run came after a full season and a good start as well, or like a good spell in October. So I think like we kind of had a bit of credit in the bank. But with Duff, like it was our worst start in however many years it was, our worst league start, and then he did have a run, and then it was another 1 win in 8. So there was not many sort of positives to take from the results.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So a little bit of stats from Duff, and he played 19 league games. Well, I say played. He managed 19 league games for Swansea, and he got, what was it, 5 wins?
5 wins.
I got it in front of me. I don't know why I'm asking you. 5 wins, 6 draws, 8 losses. We'll compare the other managers in second as well a bit later on. But I didn't quite work the win percentage out. But if it's 19 games and 5 wins, I'm going to say that's what, 26.
Yeah, 26. Yeah, it's about right, isn't it?
Ish.
Yeah.
Something like that, just over 25, math. Isn't it? Yeah, 27 maybe. It's around there anyway. You could, play one more game when it gets to 20 and say he doesn't win that, then it is 25. So it was going to be a tricky away day to Rotherham, which is funny actually because they haven't got a manager. So on Saturday this week, we're going to actually head to Rotherham for a managerless encounter. Obviously, we got a caretaker manager. Sheehan has taken up the reins. Alan Sheehan has taken up the reins. He was third in command, I believe, at the moment, and obviously Duff and his number 2 have left. Alan Sheehan has stayed. Alan Sheehan, someone that's been brought in by Paul Watson, got all links to when they were at Luton together, and that did raise a lot of questions and concern from people about that one name that keeps cropping up in the managerial race as well. But by all accounts, he's been ruled out. So Nathan Jones hopefully will not be managing Swansea, which I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to hear. But yeah, going back to Duff and him being sacked. So 19 games is quite a short time. And I think it's the shortest stint as the Swansea boss since Bob Bradley. I don't know, how many games did actually maybe Carlos Carvajal didn't have as many games? But he didn't get sacked. Sure. So
yeah, he just took us the end of the season, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised at how ruthless this was, even though, yeah, like I said, I think it was kind of deserved. Bit of a change up for us, isn't it? Normally we're quite lenient with the managers. We give them a bit more time, so not something that we're used to.
No, it's not something we're used to, and it does. I've seen a lot of people happy and celebrating the fact, and look, you might think it's the right decision, but I'm not sure it's something I want to be celebrating, because it is a bit worrying to see what the situation is at the moment. I'm not really sure what the fix is and the turnaround. It's hard to do that at this part of the season, I think, and we're not a club that's going to go and splash the cash to prize a manager away from a team.
Yep.
And, you've got the likes of, we've already said Nathan Jones, not really been in the running. John Eustace, another manager who heavily is linked and has been linked to us in the past, turned us down once before. By all accounts, has said already he's not interested. So I'm not sure why he doesn't want to come down here, but for some reason we're not doing it for him. So it's getting harder, it seems, for us as a club to attract managers.
Yeah, I think it's an age-old problem for us, though. We've always struggled to attract players and managers, really. I think geographically where we are is hard. If you're an hour outside of London or Manchester, I think it's a different ball game. But I think it's always been hard for us to attract big names, especially I'm sorry, I'm just distracted because Arsenal have just scored a 96th minute winner against Luton.
So they were 3-3. Have they won now, have they?
Yeah, they've just scored, 96th minute, 4-3.
Do you have a bet on them?
No, I didn't. It's just mental. Luton are looking good as well, speaking of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised at Eustace, because I think he has been linked to us a couple of times, but he clearly doesn't want the job. But that's not good either. But we'll come on to it. I think we'll talk about sort of the shorter term, why Duff was sacked. But I think this position that we're in is kind of 4 years in the making, and not I won't. Duff can take some of the blame, but not all of it. I think it's been coming for a long time, this position that we're in.
Yeah. So Duff was hired by Watson alongside Andy Coleman in the summer. Now, Andy Coleman and Watson, the two people that also have sacked Michael Duff, obviously they put a statement out. Andy Coleman's obviously quite recent and new to the club. I have actually liked the way that he's thrown himself into the role, and I think it's been quite positive from what we had prior to him. And I do quite like the statement that he put out here as well. But there's a bit that stands out for me about maybe some of the causes and reasons for the sacking. It also I think is important to say that Andy Coleman is still learning, perhaps in his role as chairman. He's not afraid to necessarily say when he's made a mistake, and to highlight the fact that he is still learning Swansea, if you like. And it does all come through in his statement for me that he's quite honest about that, and I find that quite refreshing. Not a case of just being a faceless statement, if you like, from what we used to perhaps from the other owners who we don't hear so much of. This is a bit more on ground level, and it does feel like that. But I'll read out the bit at the end that kind of stands out for me, and maybe we can discuss the impact of these words and why, and what maybe they might have meant in terms of the sacking. So he ends the statement with, "I understand how important it is to reconnect the leadership of Swansea City Football Club with its supporters. That is one of the primary reasons why I moved here with my family in the summer." Now, he's acknowledging there that perhaps the fans feel disconnected from the ownership. Yeah, and I think that's been an issue for a number of years, as you just touched on. And then he goes on to the second bit about he's been brought in to be hands-on, ground level. He's come here. He is here. And yeah, he has only been here for a few months, but I guess from when he made the initial decision to hire Duff to now, maybe he's got a different understanding of the expectations of the fan base as well. So he goes on to say, being present in Swansea matters, but so does taking responsibility. I will learn from the experience of these last several months. My appreciation for how critical the Swansea identity is to the club has grown since the summer, and it will be high in my mind as I make the decision on our new head coach. Now, I just said Nathan Jones has been ruled out, by all accounts. That statement there kind of ruled him out for me before we even had the confirmation. I think you can't write a statement like that and then go and hire someone like him. So I wasn't so worried about him being high in the bookies markets. But what do you make of the point of making a point of the fact that he lives in Swansea, he's moved to Swansea, alongside some of the earlier season criticism from the fan base of Michael Duff and where he was residing at the time?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, you've got to say at this point what the fans want to hear, haven't you? So you've got to say, it's the Swansea way, and I want to be in Swansea because it's all the criticisms that everybody's had at Duff over the last couple of months. So I understand what he's saying, but also it's a little bit worrying that your chairman is saying he's kind of learning about the city and the club on the job.
Yeah, but if he's not been here and he's not a Swansea fan, then he's not going to know certain things. And I think it's quite a community-based and you could say family-driven club in a way. Like the fan base feels like a family. They have these expectations, what they ask for. And we've spoke with the Swansea way. We're not here to have a conversation about that at the moment. So let's just talk about it from the perspective of that's what the fan base on the whole expects, rather than our own opinions. But maybe he thought... And I think Michael Duff also gave the assurances that he would get stuck into that. But I guess maybe Coleman has seen it means a little bit more than what he thought it meant.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good thing from a fan's behalf, isn't it? Because I think he's learned pretty quickly. I mean, Swansea's a small city, so I don't think it's hard for, even though, people who play for the club and work for the club, even though they are quite removed, you don't really, you don't bump into them every day, but they are, because it's such a small city, you kind of get that feeling. I think that the team and the people around the club get that feeling from the fans more so than other places, maybe. So it's quite good that it's had that effect on him, that he has realised what it means to the fans, and that message is getting across. So I think that is just good in that sense. Maybe not all clubs are like that.
We kind of talk about how vocal the fan base can be on social medias on time, and it's not always positive or nice to see. But, voicing your opinion is valid, and it's always good to do that in a nice and respectful way, I think. And I think this kind of shows they are listening as well. They are aware of what is being said and what the general feeling is. And I guess that's a positive, because I haven't always felt like that. Under Trevor Birch, I felt like we had that a bit, and then I felt it kind of got lost again.
Yeah,
feels like maybe it's coming back a bit.
Yeah, you don't want the club to be really far removed from the fan base, from the opinions. So I think he's kind of addressing that, isn't he?
Yeah, and to be fair, if he's going to hold his hands up and say Duff was his man, he's held his hands up here to say, look, I got it wrong maybe, and he didn't kind of give what I thought he was going to, but I will take all of that going forward now into selecting the next man. And I guess time will tell whether this statement is backed up with what he's saying. But a lot has been said about Duff speaking to the media and saying the wrong things. I guess you could say Coleman here is saying the right things. Yeah,
I think that's what he's done. He's saying what everybody wants to hear at the moment, and that's it's probably the right thing to do from the chairman at this point.
Yeah. So let's go forward. I asked on Twitter today to see what people were saying about this topic in general, or what everyone wanted to hear about us discuss, because it's such a big topic. It's hard to know where to start, really. So I got a couple of pointers we can use to create some conversation. The first one is quite deep, I think, but has Michael Duff had a negative impression on Swansea's identity, and did he understand the club?
Yeah, that is quite deep. The thing is, again, it's easy to say after the fact. We've said, and it's hard for us to say he didn't understand the club and he didn't appreciate it. But I'm sure managers do have an idea of what everything means to the club. But other managers are probably better at it than others. He didn't exactly, endear himself to the fans with some of the stuff he said early on, and I think he really struggled to get over that. I think he made, first impressions count, and I think he didn't start off well, and that just stuck with him the whole time. So he was really up against it from really early on, especially the main one was losing the derby, and the comments he made about that. I think everybody sort of still goes back to that. It still sticks in their mind.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, I work in Cardiff, so I work around some Cardiff fans, and even they mentioned it. Like yesterday when he got sacked, they said, "Oh, I still can't believe the comments he made about the derby. I'd rather lose and get promoted." And even they said, you don't, even if that is true, you probably don't say that in the derby week. Even though we kind of understood it and played it down somewhat. That he was probably trying to just lower the pressure because we weren't playing very well at the time. So he was probably just trying to ease the pressure a little bit. But I just don't think fans. I don't think fans ever forgive him for that. I don't think he ever recovered from it. That's generally what I think. I think if he wins the derby, I think the narrative changes. Because he lost the derby and made those comments, it was he doesn't understand the club, he doesn't get it. Now he doesn't live in the city. All these other things started to roll out from that, and I think ultimately that's what's cost him his job.
I find it quite interesting because something like this happens, and then all of the information starts coming out, doesn't it? So there's a BBC article.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
BBC article has come up today from Chris Wathen. And there was rumours about this at the time. We're speaking about the derby now, and the comments, the pressure he put on himself, and then we lost, and it was really dire performance, really poor, wasn't it? It was a really bad time to be a Swansea fan, if you like, and fans weren't happy, but by all accounts, players weren't happy, and it was this meme that was going around on Twitter, wasn't it, about Grimes as the manager now, if you remember, and people make jokes about it or whatever, but Chris Wathen's reporting in this article has come up today saying that there was a group of senior players that did approach Duff after the Cardiff results, saying that they weren't happy with the direction of playing style that he was taking the club in. And ultimately, there was a compromise made, which preceded to our good run of form, the best run of form we had under Michael Duff. The draw at QPR and then the four wins in a row, I think it was. The change of formation as well, wasn't it? And it was a clear, distinct difference to what he was trying to do in that stage, and unfortunately, they weren't able to maintain it. So the article goes on to say how the fact that the players had to ask for this change, it is an unsustainable thing in the long term. But I do find that quite interesting because everything comes out, doesn't it, when the manager gets sacked. But I'm curious because I found it quite funny. Yannick Bolasie obviously made his debut, a home debut on the weekend at Huddersfield, and only, what was it, yesterday or was it the day before? Sunday maybe, he was tweeting how grateful he was to make a debut here, and part of the reason that he came here was all down to the manager. Someone was quote tweeting him saying, "See, look, it's Grimes that's got players joining now," and Yannick Bolasie replied to clarify, like, no, I thought Michael Duff was a great man, and he's literally the reason I signed, and I respect the man a lot. So don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but maybe it's not all smooth sailing in the player camp, which is not good to see.
It's a bit worrying because either that is the case, and you kind of got a divide going on there because it's almost as if like someone said, "Oh, Grimes is doing it," and he's kind of had to jump to the defence. So I hope there's not like a bit of a split going on. or it's just that's the that's the media handbook 101, isn't it? Oh, I back the manager and he's the reason that I signed and stuff like that. It's kind of what players are trained to say, essentially, isn't it? So that's what I kind of hope it was. But yeah, it's a bit worrying. But I mean, we'll go on to talk about long term in a bit. But while we're talking about the players and the influence of the players, this is what worried me recently. If we talk about the recent form of why he got sacked, is that like when we went 2-0 up against Hull and then we'll come back to 2-2 and then the Leeds game, I would probably expected to lose that game, and then the Huddersfield game on Saturday. It's not just the results. Like you can see the body language of the players worried me. Before I sort of jumped to his defence a bit and said, we got to kind of give him time, and I thought people were a little bit harsh. But the last 3 games, I know it looks like it's easy to say now because they've been sacked, but I said like after that game on Saturday, I was starting to think it might be time, because those 3 games, the body language of the players really worried me. It just looked like something was wrong. And again, I know people probably say, oh, it's easy to say now because they sacked, but it just really didn't look right for me, didn't feel right. The performances, even though we were 2-0 up against Hull, and we did play better in the first half going forward, but the players just looked off it. They didn't look interested. In some of the games, they just looked a bit off the pace.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. Going back to the negative impression of the identity, I'm not really sure how to answer that question. I don't think... I think it feels really bad at the moment because of where we are right now. We're in the slump. We're at what feels like the bottom, hopefully anyway. Hopefully it goes up from here. And it's easy to say that it's all because of him and he's unravelled things. But let's just go back to Steve Cooper, and he, I would argue, was probably even more pragmatic than what we've seen under Michael Duff. But he got results, so you didn't hear a lot of the negativity for a long time. People eventually got fed up of it and bored of the 1-0 Andre Ayew or 1-0 Jamal Lowe and holding on, and it was successful for him. He had back-to-back playoff results. He is our most successful manager since we got relegated. That's the facts of it. But people didn't want that football by the end of it. But he had a lot longer because he was doing well.
Yeah.
He had a lot longer to survive because he was doing well.
Exactly.
So I don't know. But then like Russell Martin came in and we said it was transition and it took a long time. And you can say he brought the identity back. So I don't necessarily think he's made a negative impression long term on the identity. I don't think it's unfixable. I think a lot of the players, because it is a short time as well, if they bring a manager in that's more akin to Russell Martin's style now, I don't think it would be too difficult for a lot of the ones that were here before to get back into that. A lot of the new guys that signed might be a different story. But I don't think it's going to have a lasting damage if that's the worry.
I don't know. I think it's a bit of a lazy narrative that people throw, like, oh, he's ruined the style and he doesn't play the Swansea way and all this crap, which really has just started to bug me over the years. The problem is, whoever followed someone like Russell Martin was going to struggle, because the way that Russell Martin played was so much more extreme than even the likes of Brendan Rodgers and those managers played. It was so much more possession based than any other manager, really. So whoever came in next, there was always going to be a dip in the amount of possession we had. There was always going to be a dip in the amount of passes we had. That's just natural, because not everyone plays that extreme level of possession football, and it works for some teams. Like it's probably working at Southampton now because he's got the good players to do it, but that just seems like a really lazy narrative now. Like, oh, he's ruined the style. He doesn't play the Swansea way and all that. I don't necessarily think he was playing like boring football. He wasn't parking the bus or anything. He just wasn't as sort of possession based as Russell Martin was. And he even said that when he first started was, I do believe in playing football, but he sort of said, oh, I just believe in being a little bit more direct, like not being so extreme with possession for possession's sake. And that's kind of what we wanted. So on paper, it seemed like it was the right appointment, because the biggest, thing that we had last year when things were going bad under Martin, we were saying, oh, we just keep the ball for no reason. We don't do anything with it. And then we just concede goals. So when Duff was appointed, and the stuff that he said on paper, I remember we did the video and we were quite excited about it. We thought, like, yeah, if he can find the right blend of keeping the ball and being direct and bringing in pace players, like he said, then that's exactly what we probably hit on. So now that it hasn't worked, and then people to just say, "Oh, look, we had less possession, so he's ruined the Swansea way," I think that's really lazy. I think there's more to it than that.
No, I agree. I, on the whole, just to put it out there, I kind of feel sorry for him because I don't think he couldn't have been successful. I think he came in at the wrong time for him to be successful here.
So
I think he was not the right manager to follow Russell Martin. I think a lot of managers would have fallen into that category. I think Russell Martin is a very difficult manager to take over from. And that's not to criticise him because he obviously does his style a certain way and it works very well. Maybe it couldn't quite work here to get us where we wanted to be in the duration. He probably should have done a bit better. We've talked about all that before. And I'm sure he's learned and maybe he's implementing that now in Southampton. But for anyone that doesn't go that extreme, it's hard to like kind of take that away from what's already been embedded, go back to the basics a little bit. And I feel a lot of the errors we made this season with the goals we conceded are kind of hangover issues from the period under Russell Martin more than an issue with how Duff is setting the team up. That's how I feel personally, because I think on the whole we look a little bit more solid, but there's issues that have seeped through that you can't seem to find a way of fixing. So sometimes we look solid, but then sometimes we just look nowhere defensively. But where we look like nowhere defensively, it's the same sort of nowhere defensively we looked under Russell Martin. Now, what I mean by that is when we used to get the likes of 70-80% possession but still lose games and concede goals when the other teams only got 20-30% of the ball, we couldn't defend essentially. So it's easy to not concede goals when the other team doesn't touch the football. That's kind of where Martin's going with his style. But when they did have the ball and they attacked us or they pressed us in areas, we were all over the place and made errors and give stupid goals away all the time. And I think those things have carried over.
Yeah, the problem is I think it's been a problem for us really since Steve Cooper left, is defending. We concede so many stupid goals and we're always capable of getting hammered. I mean, I was looking back at results and stuff over our time with Martin and Duff. Like we had a few like 4-0s here and there where we always had that in the locker. And I think you're right. I think the fact that we don't have that much possession probably highlights it more. I didn't really think about it that before, but I got to be honest. I worried in some games, like especially recently. I watched some games and I don't think that the results have necessarily showed the game. So a prime example would be Ipswich, where it finished 3-2, and on paper that looks like a decent performance away from home. But watching that game, and I know like we've sung Ipswich's praises, but my God, we could have lost like that. That could have been like
no. You are right on the Ipswich game, but they literally done that to the team they played after us as well.
I know.
Battering everyone.
No, I know they're battering everyone, but they haven't put like 6 past someone, for example. And realistically, that's what they missed sitters in that game. I've never seen a team have so many chances and not score more goals. But then that was a kind of a recurring theme because there were other games where, even if we got a point or drew, Rushworth made so many saves in some games. Like Millwall away, which we won, he made some ridiculous saves. I think he made about 4 or 5 big saves. And some games at home, he's been forced in to make loads of saves. So I think the fact that he hasn't been able to, fix the defensive issues is a major problem because that's something that has to be done. Whoever comes in next has to do it. We can't leak goals and chances the way that we do.
Yeah, but this is where maybe the issue is, isn't it, though? Like you want someone in the Swansea way, but our first priority is always got to be fixing the defence. I don't know how well they combine.
I think it kind of highlights that it was a bit of a narrative last year as well that some of the players that we've got defensively are not great, are they? And I think the more that they're being like isolated this year, like I'm thinking about Cabango and Darlin. I was
going to say Cabango for me I think he's going down in my estimations the more I'm seeing him playing. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think, but maybe when you have, like you said, maybe when you have 80% possession, it kind of hides that a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
obviously we did concede stupid goals, but it does mask it. So yeah, I think again, like we can moan about Duff, and rightly so. He didn't fix the defensive problems, but the players got to take some responsibility for this run of form as well. There's been some awful performances from players this season who haven't turned up at all, which we can go
Yeah.
into on another day. But this is why I do feel a little bit sorry for him, even though it is probably the right call again. But
Look, it's a results-based business, and he didn't get
yeah,
the
of course it
results, and
is.
we're in
Of
the
course it is.
position that we're in. So I feel like a
Of course it
change
is.
had to be made.
Yeah,
But I think it's also fair to talk about what went wrong, why it went wrong, and
yeah,
like learn from it. I guess I do feel for him. I think some of the recruitment, as much as it was a lot of it was positive, the amount of players and stuff, is still the squad is still not correct where we need it to be, and probably from what he wanted to bring. You just said, he mentioned in his earlier press conferences about being a little bit more direct and adding a bit more pace. Those are the two things he kind of said. We haven't really added any pace. We brought Janelli in. That was the only pace we added up front.
it was
Or
a big loss.
Jamal Lowe, I don't even know if that counts as pace, because I don't actually think he uses it, or at least doesn't show it very often if he has pace. And to play his system, to play five at the back or whatever, there still seemed to be no pace. We're missing pace. We're still having a big issue with that, and I think that was highlighted a lot by Yannick Bolasie coming in on the weekend against Huddersfield, second half, when he was introduced, and he brought that excitement. He ran at players. He was doing a bit of trickery. He was putting a bit of pace in, and look, he's not fit enough at all at the moment. Clearly, I think he blew up. He was gone by like 20 minutes after being on the pitch, and that's fine. He's 34 and he's hardly played recently, so it was a risk we had to put him on, because I guess Duff was feeling the pressure, clearly. And we know why now. Maybe he knew.
Yeah,
But I think he has shown what we are missing. And I personally also think he's shown the likes of Jamal Lowe that I don't think Jamal Lowe's done enough. At the end of the day, he's on loan from Premier League club. He's supposedly should have been a better player from when he left, considering his trajectory going up and getting promoted. But he scored, one goal from open play?
yeah, I think so.
The rest of them penalties.
Yeah, maybe.
And he's missed a penalty. So he scored 2 goals from open play, because he did that run the other day, didn't he, against Ipswich.
That was Ipswich, wasn't it? Yeah.
And he scored one earlier on in the season. Grimes went to shoot and it ricocheted, and he had the easy finish. But I don't think he's really done that much. Like, if you see Bolasie coming on as a 34-year-old who's not fit, taking players on, having shots, causing a bit of excitement, getting people up off their seats. But what does Jamal Lowe do to do that? He had that one run against Ipswich. Was the only time I can think of that he really has done that.
Yeah, and this is another reason why I think he's been unlucky, because the Janelli injury was really, really bad timing. I mean, it's bad timing, like, anyway, to have an injury, but he was the only player that we had at the time that was capable of that, and he was really starting to come into it. I think he'd come on, he come off the bench, and he saw a screamer in one of the cup games, and then he made a couple of appearances off the bench, and we went to West Brom, and he came on, and I thought, oh my God, he looks so sharp. And then just as he was growing into the game, and I think he started the game, he got injured, didn't he? And I think that was a massive loss, and I think that really affected the way that we wanted to play, because clearly, like he said, he wants that Bolasie, Janelli type player to have that bit of X factor in the final third, that bit of spark into life, which we don't normally have. It's normally that slow build up, 10 men behind the ball, moving it, looking for the space. He wanted somebody to just drive a defence, which we haven't had really for. I can't remember the last time we had wingers.
But that's Montero probably, isn't it? But and Barrow. But that's where you got away with it with Russell Martin's style, because it was focused on being slow, just moving the ball around, and eventually the opposition would lay you in. That's literally what Russell Martin wanted you to do. Just keep the ball until one of them makes a mistake, and then you're in. You don't need anyone to run and do this and that and the other. Like, that's not what he was looking for. So the squad was inherited of that, there was no pace anymore. Like, he got rid of any wingers that we had left. Lowe left under Martin originally. Garrick, for example, one that people were wondering why he couldn't have had a career, and he was shipped off. I can't really think of anyone else with pace recently that has gone or hasn't really managed to do much. And then if you look further back as well, the wing backs, we had an issue last season, right, with our right wing back, and Latipodia was playing there. Arguably, we could say if Josh Key was signed last year, maybe we would have had a little bit of a better season, I think, based on how we were playing. Now we've kind of got the opposite problem where I would say Key has come in and he's doing quite well. He's still a bit fresh at this level, so he's only going to get better. But we've lost Manning, who was our top assister last season, from left wing back. Now, Duff wanted to use wing backs, so that would have been so valuable for him. I don't think Timon at all has reached any sort of level near what Manning was giving us. And obviously Pedersen's hardly really featured. And then up top as well, you've lost your 20 goal a season striker. That also hasn't been replaced. So you've lost your biggest goal scorer and you've lost your biggest assister. And not really replaced either of them, really. And you mentioned Ncham as well, who kind of was second in both those areas, you could argue. I think Grimes technically was second in assists, but I think
they were our 3 top goal scorers from last year in Ncham, and I think that's why I think he has been unlucky, because I think naively he thought Perot might stay, and he obviously thought Ncham was going to stay, because by all accounts,
I think everyone thought Ncham was going to stay.
Yeah, but he played all pre-season, and he was due to start the first game of the season. I think we had Birmingham at home, didn't he? And he was due to start, and Patterson was 1 foot out the door. And then the day before, and Ncham goes, and Patterson has to start, then he's back in the mix. So all that pre-season plan is out the window, based on Ncham playing in that kind of role when he's got a capability of kind of driving a defence, isn't he, from the middle rather than from the wing, and maybe having a shot off. But so that kind of mix up. So there's so many more factors that have gone to it. Like you said, lose it. We never replaced Manning, Perot, and Ncham either.
So if he's building his style in pre-season, and Ncham is the guy that's going to be the attacking, creative player that he's built it around, and the night before the first game of the season, all of a sudden that's not a thing anymore. Like, okay, he should adapt. He's the manager. He should do better. But it does have an impact. And Patterson, as you said, he's out the door. So he's come in and showing good form now. I do think he fizzles out with games quite a lot, especially in the second half. And we don't have another option. So if we could have the both of them in doing quite well, that could have really helped the situation.
Yeah, I think like that was probably the first kind of setback for him, wasn't it? And then obviously we spoke about the derby then was quite soon into the season, and then the number of injuries that we've got. So I do have a bit of sympathy with him, because Janelli gets injured, Joe Allen's out, Wood is out, Abdullah got injured, Pedersen played well when he came in. He looked pretty good when he played, and then he was out of the team.
Kujarovic.
Yeah, he has. We had so many injuries that I've forgotten about. Key was out for a while. Now Ashby as well got injured. I just think he just couldn't stop the bleeding of everything was going wrong. Just
suspensions to Ollie Cooper, Patino, and Cullen.
Yeah, everything just seemed to be going wrong for him at the wrong time. I'd like the last couple of weeks, you kind of knew what his starting 11 was going to be, and then I was guilty of it myself. We'd be 60 minutes into the game, 55, 60 minutes into the game, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's got to change something. And then I'd go and look at the bench, and I think, I have no idea what he can do. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is another thing I want to highlight, right? So you're saying this now, you've got to change something. He did change the starting lineup for Huddersfield, and he's had a lot of criticism that he started with the wrong team. So I'm lost.
But this is the thing. This is why I do have a bit of sympathy with him, is because we're not going to completely defend him, but there is so much going on. I think he's not 100% to blame for all of this going on. And what I was going to say was, unfortunately, even though we've got tons of injuries, like you said, it's a results-based business. We can't overhaul the squad. We can't change the ownership. So the only person's head that's going to roll is the manager. And unfortunately, that's the business. That's the business you're in, isn't it, with football? So I do feel a bit sorry for him. I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's just wrong manager, wrong time. And if he could have this time back, I mean, bloody hell, he has been unlucky with injuries, and last minute equaliser of QPR, that might change things. Last couple of seasons when I think this was a massive factor. Last couple of seasons, we played Bristol and Cardiff in that October window, and we started rubbish in all of our previous 2 or 3 seasons. We
Yeah,
started
well, we
poorly.
can make a comparison now, actually, if you want to do that
Yeah,
now.
go on. Let's go on to that.
So we've got Michael Duff up on the screen now against Russell Martin because they're the 2 previous ones. So you're talking about the start of the season here, yeah?
Yeah, so first 19 games under Duff. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can't see it, but first 19 games for each of Martin and Duff. So Duff has won 5 games in that time. Russell Martin won 7. So 2 more wins, same number of draws, so 6 draws each. And then Duff has obviously lost the 2 more games that against Russell Martin, 6. So for me, what stood out, I was quite surprised at that actually, because I thought, it's not, we're not a million miles off, are we there really? You're talking about 2 losses into wins. And if you look at a couple of things like, the Watford game at home, which we had that goal disallowed for, I still don't know why that goal was disallowed, and then we went on to lose the game. That's a big factor. But the key thing is those 2 games that we lost, the Bristol City and the Cardiff game, if he wins those 2 games, he'll have the same record as Russell Martin did in his first 19 games, and he's still in the job. I think it's as simple as that. If we beat Bristol and Cardiff, he's still in the job.
But I also think the Huddersfield game on the weekend, right? He wins that game and he's only 1 win behind.
Yeah.
And we'll come to the Huddersfield specifically, but I don't think that's the game to judge him as a manager on, because I think that's down to the team that we didn't win that game, not the manager.
I think the only thing that worried me about the Huddersfield game was, I know he had to make changes. I know people have moaned about the lineup, but what worried me was the drastic change. Like when I saw the lineup, Norton was back in, and Walsh was starting.
Yeah,
and I thought, and he dropped Yates, and I think it was such a, because like I said, the previous 8 games, he didn't make that many changes. So for me, when I saw that lineup, I just thought something's amiss here. I think that's what worried me, because I thought maybe he's in a bit of trouble because he's had to make drastic changes, and it felt like a kind of a last throw of the dice. And then the fact that we were only 1-0 down, and he made 3 changes at half time, said that this was just like last throw of the dice. Chuck, that's what it screamed to me at the time.
Do you think it's that drastic changes though? I got the team up ahead of me, and Kyle Norton's come in for Josh Key. Josh Key's still coming back from fitness. He's not fit enough to do 90 minutes. That's what that is. You could say Harry Darlin plays, but Darlin's played pretty much every game because of injuries in our centre-back system. So maybe he just felt he wanted to play a right-back, because Norton has been on his career a right-back. Yeah? So for me, that's not that weird, considering Key's fitness is the reason Key didn't start. If Key starts there, no one bats an eyelid. So the other change really is Liam Walsh coming in for Jerry Yates, I guess.
Yeah.
And Liam Cullen coming in for Cooper. Cullen for Cooper, I mean, he only lost his place because of suspension. And 3 games in a week. I was expecting that change to happen midweek, but it's happened on the weekend instead. So it's only really Liam Walsh coming in for Yates. And people have been asking for Yates to be dropped. So I don't really think the team selection was all that crazy. 3 changes.
No, I don't think it was. I'm not saying it was a crazy team selection, but
No, again, but people have said the team selections are all over the place and wrong. It's 3 changes. That's nothing. I
just didn't expect, I just didn't expect some of the changes. That's all. At the time, I was it kind of came from left field, and I thought, something was amiss, because it was so unlike everything we'd seen up to that point. So I was thinking it was a big change. You have those days where you go down to the game, and then the team lineup comes out, and 9 times out of 10 is just it's exactly what we expected. But it was one of them where I was in the pub and everybody was kind of like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, Norton's in, is he? Oh, Walsh is starting as well. Oh, and Yates is dropped. It was kind of like one thing after the other. It was like that. It was just, you got everybody talking before the game.
Yeah. I do get where you're coming from, but we've said so many times on the podcast with the front 4 not being able to be changed. So I would have given credit for the fact that he tried. I said Liam Walsh had been pushing for a start and eventually got a start. And I said he could maybe take the role in the cam position, and that's kind of where he slotted in, rotating between midfield and cam. Jamal Lowe going up front instead of Liam Cullen I found a bit weird.
Yeah,
That's probably the biggest issue I had with it personally.
yeah, I
And
don't understand that.
yeah, but by all accounts, Liam Walsh had a decent game, didn't he? But
Look, the thing is, again, it's easy after the fact, isn't it? Because if Cabango doesn't score an own goal in the first couple of minutes, then it could be a different game, you know. But we didn't. I don't think we did enough to really win the game after that, which was a bit of the problem. And then,
do you not think?
no, I just don't feel like we did a lot to win that.
But
And
are
you're
you
talking
coming
about,
from that other disappointed perspective? Because I got the stats in front of me, and they read 4 big chances created, 4 big chances missed.
no, we did have chances, but the problem is, and it might be, I'm not being like disrespectful to Huddersfield or anything, but they are down there with us, and they at the moment.
Yeah,
When Huddersfield come home to us, we have got to dominate that game. We've got to look better than them in every aspect of the game, and I didn't get that feeling. It wasn't like, you know, how many times have teams come down to us and, you know, they sit back. They're at the bottom of the table or lower down. They sit back, and we find it hard to break them down. And it's just so frustrating. You come out of the game and just like, oh, so annoying because they just came down here for a point. But I just didn't get that sense. I just felt like we weren't good enough to win that game comfortably. We could have nicked the game. We could have nicked it 2-1 and oh, okay, we got the 3 points, but it just wasn't good enough. I don't know if that makes sense, but it
No,
just needed to be better. The performance needed to be better.
I do get where you're coming from. As I said to you earlier, though, I don't think this is the game to judge his poor tenure as manager on.
I can't judge it just on that one game.
And I think I'm not sure we even win this game last season, if that's what Huddersfield's game plan is. We might have, but there's several times this sort of thing happened in Russell Martin's tenure where we couldn't break them down still doing that style of football. You know, it's been a consistent thing for Swansea playing passing football, going 1-0 down at home and not being able to break teams down. So just from the perspective of dominating the game, we had 77% possession, we had 22 shots, granted only 5 on target, but a lot of them were blocked. We had 4 big chances, and big chance is where they use XG and you should score, essentially. You should be scoring. And all 4 big chances that we had, we missed. Charlie Patino's goal isn't even classed as a big chance. So we missed 4 big chances that we made. Huddersfield didn't create a big chance. We had 11 shots inside the box. So I personally think I'm not really sure what more the manager can do in this game and this circumstance. So if you go to the team selection, as you said, I don't buy the criticism that he got the team wrong, because nobody can plan for a first-minute own goal. And whatever game plan he set up with the team selection that he put on the pitch has already gone out the window when you've got a team who are in a relegation zone, who are defensive enough anyway, getting a 1-0 lead in the first minute away from home, are always going to sit back. Just to clarify that, Huddersfield came down with a formation of 5 at the back, 4 in midfield, 1 up top. Not wing backs, 5 at the back. Like 5, not like a back 4, but a back 5. Not even wing backs pushing up. That's the setup they had. So that says it all about what they were planning to do. And again, we should do better, we should. But it's also got to be down to the players on the pitch for me. And when in the second half he did make them 3 changes, it's one of them where if we go and win that game 2-1, I guess people are like, oh, you know, he made the bold move and it paid off and well done. When it doesn't pay off, it's like he's desperate, you know. So again, after the fact, it's easy to say those things. I said what I kind of wanted to say about some of the changes earlier on. Balassi, for me, highlighted what we are missing. I don't really know how we didn't get 2 goals in our second half based on the performance. But I think he showed what the squad is missing. And that's a shame, because there's no one else really there that does that. People feel sorry for Ollie Cooper not coming on off the pitch, but I think he's had enough chances this season to show that he probably wouldn't have done anything in this game as well. Yeah. So, the commentary I was listening to was saying, if I'm Ollie Cooper, I'm frustrated that Josh Key comes on instead of me. Like, why are you bringing a wing back on for a midfielder? And it's like, well, I don't know what they're on about, because Felton went right back, didn't he? So Josh Key comes on at right back, and we play in a system where Josh Key is one of our most creative players. That's the way we're operating. So I'm not really sure why Cooper would be frustrated, because we want Key up there. He has got a little bit of pace, and we want him taking players on at wide. So
Yeah, and he puts a good cross in as well, didn't he? But I don't know. It was just, but again, like I said, like that just shows the state we were in, because I forgot about that. The Fulton went to right back, and that's just mad. But I don't know. I just, if you look at it now, obviously it makes sense. Like you said, it's easier to look at it after the game. But would you have normally made three? Would he have normally made three changes at half time if we were 1-0 down? I just think that was such a.
let's have a look at who came off. I guess Norton. I didn't see the first half, right? So how was Norton playing?
Well, it's quiet, to be honest. It's just not like it's not. It's one of them. It's weird. It's not like anybody particularly played awful. It's just that we just didn't look like we were going to do anything. Obviously, we went 1-0 down and Huddersfield sat back. It just didn't look like we were going to do anything mental. And like you said, maybe he's got to change Norton because the game has changed. They're sat back and Norton's not going to bomb forward and take players on. So maybe he's got to make that change at that position. But then he puts Fulton into right back. And yeah, it's just a bit, I don't know. It just seemed like a bit of a massive throw of the dice, just making that massive
It looked to
change.
me like he kind of went three at the back then, did he?
No, it looked like Fulton went into right back.
Yeah, but Norton comes off and Darling comes on for Norton. Darling goes into centre back and Norton goes right back. The other two changes were, Humphreys went off, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, Humphreys went off, yeah.
So that's why Darling goes centre back then.
Weird he took Humphreys off as well.
Maybe that was a planned change, though, with Darling and Humphreys. They played a lot of minutes, haven't they? We don't know that.
No, I don't, not at half time, though. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll never know.
It is a weird one. I think the first half was quieter than the second half. So I made all them comments. I think we did enough in the second half to come back into the game and probably go on to win it. And I guess that's why he made the changes, because he felt like there needed to be a bit of a spark. But yeah, I'm not really sure what else really you could have. People saying he should have started with the team that ended.
But a lot of people say that all the time, though, don't they? But the game is different, isn't it? And it's a completely different game.
Key not fit enough. People are moaning Patino didn't start, but he lost his place because he got a stupid red card. It was a bit harsh, wasn't it? To be fair, but Fulton hadn't done anything wrong since he replaced him. So why should he just come back in? And there was a stat going around the other day, and a graph going around the other day about people saying how much more Patino offers than Fulton. But Fulton was ahead of him in both the categories on the graph of the season in terms of progressive play and also duels. So only slightly but people were making out like Patino is night and day better going forward and offers us all this so much more. They're pretty much like for like doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think he just looks fresh, youngster, and more exciting, but
that didn't help. I think. Look, we've been through this loads of times in this season. I think Patino's a great player, but there's just a narrative at the moment that was like the root cause of all of our problems, that he wasn't playing Patino, and Patino's the best player on earth, and he should be starting. And I didn't understand it. I wasn't. Again, it looks like I'm being overly critical of Patino. I'm not. It's just a pushback to people who think that he's the Messiah, and if he started him, then that would have solved it. And the fact that he, obviously, I'm glad he came on and scored, but the fact that he came on and scored like a garbage time equaliser, basically, which didn't really change much. Obviously, in the end, in hindsight, didn't change much. That just didn't help his cause today. So we were like, oh look, he should be starting, but
look, there was a quality goal from him. He won the ball back, played the 1-2, and it was a quality finish. But it doesn't mean he does it if he starts. It's just. Everyone was desperate at the end of the game to get a goal, weren't they? And
exactly. No, look, again, I'm not being critical of him. I think he's a great player, and that was a good goal. But I'm just saying, it's not as simple as he's on loan from Arsenal, therefore he's he should be playing every game, and he's one of the best players we've got and everything. I think there's a lot of we've criticised Duff and everything that he's got wrong, but there's a lot of players now that I'm looking at to step up. If Duff was the problem and they weren't happy with the way he was playing, then I want to see a massive improvement in some of the performances. Patino being one of them. Everybody telling me that he's this world beater. I want to see it now. He looked good in his first game when he came on against West Brom. We were quite impressed with him, weren't we? But not really seen a lot since then. And there's a lot of players in that category. It's not just him. Cabango, I've just not seen anything from the season. Cooper. There's a lot of players that are good. Yates, another one. He doesn't do anything for me. But whether that was the way Duff was playing him, so now is the time to find out. So if whoever comes in and takes the job now, I want to see a massive improvement.
Low, I would put into that category as well.
Low, yeah.
Cullen.
There's loads of them. There's plenty. You could reel them off. Some players who just haven't performed this year. So let's wait and see if anybody can come in and get a tune out of them.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. We spoke a lot. We kind of chucked the game in there a little bit earlier than anticipated, but I think we should have won that game. And I think he was getting sacked if he didn't. He probably knew. Maybe he knew he was getting sacked if he didn't win, and that did result in him pulling his hand at half time. But
yeah, I think so.
If I'm in his shoes, I'm probably there. Like, I don't really know what else I can try and do to win this, because it's down to the players then when he's made them changes and they haven't put the ball in the back of the net. I think they created enough opportunities to do it.
Yeah, I think, look, in that game, like you said, in that game in isolation is not the reason to sack him. I think, on another day we probably could win that game, but it was an accumulation of things, wasn't it, really? And
it was already done, I think.
I think you're right. I think it was on the cards before that game. I don't know, it was strange because the Leeds game, we played all right in the first sort of 10 minutes. It was a shame that they scored almost straight after when we scored, and then after that we just kind of weren't in the game after that.
I'll tell you a sign that signals that it was kind of already on the agenda was giving Yannick Bolasie such a short contract.
Yeah. So
I thought maybe there was rules that he can only, because it's out of transfer window, only sign a low length deal. I want to go and check if that is actually a thing, because I'm wondering if they only did it because we'll get you this guy to help, but they weren't convinced Duff's going to be here by January. So then if the new guy doesn't want Bolasie, he's gone, isn't he? So
yeah, I think there's been sort of talk, isn't there, that we will kind of dip into the market in January, probably with the level of injuries we've got as well. So I think it looks like they've kind of made that decision that they didn't want to go forward with Duff in the window. And they wanted to get a new manager in now to have a little go with the squad over Christmas before they invest in January. And I think you're right. I think giving someone a 2-month deal, was it, or whatever it was, for Bolasie, I think that's not a good sign, is it? It's like, I want this player. Okay, you can have him for a little bit.
I mean, it's easy to say in here, we'd assess him in 2 months by January, and then we'll give him a longer contract. But I think from the board level, it's clever to say, well, we did get him someone to help, but also if we do pull the trigger, we're not stuck with him if the new guy doesn't want him. So maybe that was just telling. They figured that it was already a conversation.
Yeah, I think also it was just the nature of the risk with the player as well, being with his age and the fact that he was a free agent and maybe not match fit, then kind of protected the club really. And if he wasn't fit or got injured, then they weren't really stuck with the contract. But we'll see. He might work out, mind. He looked quite sharp, mind, when he came on. He looked all right against Leeds as well. If he can up his fitness and he looks good, maybe they sign him to the end of the season. So we'll wait and see.
I did like his first touch where he brought it down off the air and nearly volleyed it into the goal.
He's still
if that had gone in,
class, isn't he?
If that had gone in, there would have been riots. That was outrageous to even chest it down into a path where he could get a shot away and not be blocked by a defender.
He is just like a living highlight reel, though, isn't he? I remember the days you've seen videos of him when he was at Palace, just rainbow flicking people and doing ridiculous things. So he's got that in the locker. I mean, you don't lose that, but you lose your fitness, don't you? So hopefully we'll see a bit more of that. Hopefully he's got it in him. But
he's 34, so hopefully if we can get 60 minutes out of him in a match, that would be good. Let's go back to our slideshow. So Duff on 21 points. Martin would have been on, I think we worked it out as
27,
21, 27. So as much as there's 2 wins, like 6 points is a big difference. If you want to compare it to where that puts us in the league table, 18th on 21 points, 27 puts us joint with 4 clubs from 9th to 12th. Sunderland to Middlesbrough, that is. Sunderland, who also just sacked their manager, from 9th position. But it moves us up the table a little bit. You just highlighted the 26 goals scored under Michael Duff is actually the highest, and we'll go into the other 2 managers, Cooper and Potter, in a second. But the 26 goals scored is a bit surprising to see that from these 4 managers in the first 19 games in charge is the most.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. When I was looking at it and putting the stats together, I fully expected like Duff to be like, convincingly the worst out of the 4 managers we've had since we've been relegated. I mean, like the obviously the wins and points total is, but the goals scored, I was really surprised at that, because I don't know if you feel the same. I don't feel like we've scored loads of goals.
We scored a few threes in a few matches. No, I think I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I don't think, look, go into the style argument, people saying they don't like the style being boring. Them stats say to me the issue is the defence, like very clearly, and not the goal scoring. So where's this boring style of play agenda coming from? Because we're scoring more goals than we did under Martin. So what, people just like watching passing now more than scoring goals?
I don't know what the final. We never know, but that's just the first 19 games of their tenure, isn't it? But
yeah, and obviously a long way to go. You don't know what would have happened after that. But all I can say is, in terms of what Duff was saying about being a little bit more direct than that, he's kind of backed it up with the goals scored, considering he lost Joel Perreault. We said earlier on he didn't get a grip of the defence, and that's probably the major factor that's resulted in his downfall. And again, these stats highlight that, with 27 goals conceded, also being the highest out of the 4 managers.
Yeah, if we're being honest, we're probably going back a little bit, but you mentioned Perreault there. I think Perreault himself was probably worth 6 points. I think I underestimated myself. I'll hold my hands up. When he left, I thought, oh, maybe we'll be okay, because like Yates was there, and I think maybe we can, because his goal scoring, even I know he scored 20 goals, but sometimes he would go on a run without scoring goals. But seeing like what Yates offers now, I just think how much we miss him just in general play. He was so good at finding space, like always being there to pick up the ball off Grimes, and just sometimes he'd be like drifting out onto the wing, sometimes he'd be coming deeper, and I think he was such a good player just generally, and I think we really do miss that. He's a massive miss.
Okay, so the other 2 managers on the screen.
Because he celebrated.
Yeah. Him and did Dan James celebrate?
Yeah, he did celebrate. Yeah.
Was it like proper celebration though, or just because he scored? I mean, that's another conversation for another time. Should past players celebrate against former clubs? So a lot of that on Twitter after it happened. I mean, they're playing for someone else, paying their wages. So
I don't really care, to be honest. Like,
just a bit of banter, innit?
Yeah, I just whatever. It wasn't like he run up to the fans and shush them or anything. He just like did a celebration for his new club. He's probably happy he scored. But
if it was the other way round, we would love it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It just doesn't bother me at all. It just says to you, like, you kind of just like move on then. Like, he scored and celebrate. It's just kind of just like, oh well, that's done now. Like, he's gone. Like, kind of forget about it now.
Yeah, everyone gets on. Like, it's done. Your club is what you support, and not the players, isn't it? So you support the players while they're at the club. The other 2 managers are on the screen now. So you've got Steve Cooper, who has the best record with 8 wins, 6 draws. There's a lot of 6 draws, isn't there? And 5 losses. What did we work that out as? Like 29 points, was it? 30 points? 30 points. 30 points, which would put us in the playoffs right now. 6th place. So, I mean, goes in tune with him being the most successful manager there. 24 goals scored and 20 conceded. And then you've got Graham Potter, who had 7 wins, 5 draws, and 7 losses. So 27?
26.
26? My quick math's gone out the window today. 26 points.
You burnt it all earlier on the
So actually 1 point less than Russell Martin.
Yeah.
Just because of 1 loss instead of a draw, isn't it?
Yeah.
Extra. But that actually loses him a couple of positions in the league, so he would go down to 13th. So we're currently sitting in 18th, and Graham Potter would have been sitting in 13th. It puts it into a bit of context about whether Duff should have had more time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think, like the stats can be misleading. I was really shocked about the stats we've got here. I expected like Duff to be a lot worse, just based on what you see visually. I just thought it was going to be a lot worse. And the problem is as well, it is in your mind, because before Patino scores that equaliser, we are one place above the relegation zone. That point just takes us like 3 places up, even though we're still only 1 point from that position. Visually, if he doesn't score that goal, we're 1 place above the relegation zone, playing Rotherham next week. I just think that was, whoa, alarm bells. Like, actually, we are quite close to this relegation fight. And it is just perspective. It's just being in that position, isn't it? I mean, like you said, if he has like 1 more point or 2 more points, he might be, near to mid-table, but actually being down at the bottom, and the owners or the chairman looking at it and going, "Oh my God, we're 1 place from the relegation zone.
Yeah.
This is really worrying. We got to do something."
Playing Rotherham, we've got exactly the same form over the last 5 games. Draw, loss, draw, loss, draw. No manager as well.
Yes. That's a massive game, that is now.
It is. So there's the 4 managers. So look, the bottom line is, though, as much as we're saying it's a bit deceiving in some areas, it does show for the worst reading for Michael Duff. So maybe it shouldn't be a shock.
I think the key one was just the points, isn't it? That's just
the wins and the points. That's the bottom line. So let's a couple more bits from the Twitter comments about what they were asking us to discuss. Basically, who should replace him? Or like, who do we think might be? I think there's a bit of a, is there really much point talking about who? Because the bookies lists,
nah, they're never right, are they?
They're never right. If you look at the lists at the moment, Chris Davis is favourite. He was linked in the summer. Tottenham coach, isn't he, at the moment? Yeah. Nathan Jones and John Eustace are like 2nd and 3rd. They both out of the running by all accounts. Luke Williams in 4th place. I think he shot up the running today, so maybe there's some merit there. A lot of people interested in that being the appointment. Notts County boss at the moment does play exciting and attacking football. But then you got like Gary Rowett in 5th place, and it's just not going to happen, is it?
No.
Alan Sheehan then after him, who's currently the caretaker. I would be very shocked if he got bumped up to lead the team.
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
I wouldn't even be surprised if when someone comes in, he leaves.
Yeah, I think so. I think you might be right. But unless, because they brought him in and he kind of wasn't Duff's appointment, maybe they kind of want him in as a role in the club to, be in there as an influence. But
Eric Ramsey, Scott Parker, Frank Lampard. I can't really see any other names on the list that I think really are in with a shout here.
I mean, we can get excited about someone like Lampard or Scott Parker, but
would we get excited about Lampard these days?
Nah, maybe not. I think we're maybe just like, he's always going to get linked with us because he played for us, didn't he? I think every time we're on the hunt for a manager, he's probably going to be on the list. Already, but
Steve Schumacher is on there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've got the pulling power to pull him away. To be honest, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. If you look at the league right now, and it's less risk staying at Plymouth, because if they do go down, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that'll be a stupid move on his behalf. Well, I mean, I would take it because I think he's done a good job at Plymouth. But
by all accounts, Sunderland's sniffing around him anyway, and I think they've got a much bigger pull.
Yeah, I think that's been a major issue for us, that maybe they could have had somebody in mind or a top 3, and Sunderland sacking their manager, which we didn't see coming either, is a big problem, because essentially we're going to be second favourites if we're going for the same person. So that's
Tony Mowbray being the manager sacked. Would you like him?
No, that's just no.
They played nice football though.
Yeah, I don't know. He's been around for years, and the one thing they can never criticise with us is that I do like the way we appoint managers. We say it every time. We always go for like a young, hungry manager, which is not the same run-of-the-mill Tony Mowbray's, Steve McLaren's, Tony Pulis, all these managers, that Neil Warnock, all these managers that do the rounds. I like that we give managers a chance. the only thing that worries me now, we're going to obviously the question was like, who should we appoint? I'm more worried now than ever because I think, like I said, I think Duff is a little bit unlucky in the timing of him being. I'm not saying he's a bad manager. I think he came in, he got things wrong. He was probably just the wrong manager, the wrong time. But I think this is probably the most important managerial appointment in years. If we get this wrong now, then
Well,
we are in
we've
real
we've
trouble.
seen this before, and it's how we got relegated from the Premier League.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And nobody is immune from dropping from the Championship because it's so toxic and it's so hard. There's some big clubs that have dropped into League One and struggled to get back. I mean, look at Sheffield Wednesday, were down there for ages and looks like they're going back. Sunderland, massive club, were down there for so long and struggled to get back up. Derby haven't come straight back up. There's big teams down there, and it's nobody's immune from it. So I think we got to be very careful. Like, for example, I like Chris Davis, for example. That would be exciting if it was maybe the beginning of the season, because he's worked under Brendan Rodgers. He's been Brendan Rodgers' assistant under us in the first year when we got promoted, and then he went with him to Liverpool, and then he was his assistant in Leicester when they won the FA Cup, and Celtic when they won all those trophies. So I think that's kind of an exciting one because he probably will play that style of football, being under Brendan Rodgers. But is that too much of a risk when we're potentially in a relegation fight? I don't know. Because an appointment like that would excite me if it was the start of the season. But now, I'm just, I am just a little bit concerned that if we get this wrong.
Yeah, but what do you want? Someone to tie over to the end of the season, make sure we don't go down, or do you want someone to build?
I don't know. I'm glad I am going to make this decision because, like you said though, do we sacrifice? Do we play the Swansea way and bring someone in and risk getting relegated? But at least we play the right football. And I'm not saying bring in somebody like Warnock who will just keep you up, but do we need to find somebody in the middle? I don't know, because I think just as a club culturally, if we get in a relegation scrap, I don't think we get out of it, because I just think everything surrounding the club, the fan base, everything. If the tide starts to turn and we're in real trouble, we're not going to have like Fortress Swansea.com where when you get teams fighting relegation, they can pick up a point against anybody at home, or they can go away, and we haven't got that in us, because if we go 1-0 down or something, fans will start booing and start crying on Twitter, and it's just this not going to happen.
We go 1-0 down, and all of a sudden it's Yanks out and there's a march. But then if we're in promotion, that doesn't happen.
This is what I mean. We haven't got I don't think culturally, and not just the fans, I just think everything. Culturally, we haven't got that fight for the relegation fight, and I hope I'm wrong, but let's see if we can get out of it. It sounds doom and gloom at the moment, but let's see.
Not to use the word Yanks in derogatory term, but that's what happens. Literally.
Yeah. That's what people say.
Just quoting what was said, yeah. Okay, well, you kind of touched on it there, but the next thing I had was, what consideration should the board have for the next appointment? That's kind of what I just asked, isn't it? Like, long-term, short-term. I think from his comments in the statement I read earlier, they're looking at long-term. I think they feel there's enough time left in the season, especially with the January transfer window, like 4 weeks away. If they can make that appointment now, they'll give the new guy time to turn it around, because we're not in the relegation zone now, so there's a bit of a leeway.
No, I jumped the gun a bit there talking about a relegation fight, but I'm just saying if we get sucked in, I don't think we've got and we are still 5 points from the relegation zone, even though we'd be 1 point, but we are still 5 points from.
Yeah, QPR have just won 2 games in a row.
Yeah, I know, which it could play into it as well. If teams down there are going to start picking up points, Huddersfield beat Sunderland away in the week when we lost to Leeds, so team that could play into it as well. The teams below us are picking up points and we're losing, and you kind of looking over your shoulder rather than looking up. But it's jumping the gun a bit. Obviously, we're going to be worried about it because it's our club, and you always think, well, I do anyway. I always think, oh God, you always think of the worst. But we're not even halfway through the season, so whoever they bring in, there is time to, there is a buffer there to kind of get something going. But they do need somebody to come in and hit the ground running pretty soon.
And how long do you think? How long do you think the board have got to make this decision? I feel like they can only. It needs to be ASAP, doesn't it?
I don't think we can go any further than the Rotherham game without a manager coming in. I mean, if
we've got a midweek fixture next week.
Have we? I thought it was
Yeah.
Middlesbrough on the Saturday after.
Am I lying?
I don't know. The games come so thick and fast.
No, it's Rotherham, and then we got Stoke away on Tuesday, and then Middlesbrough.
Great. We love a trip to Stoke as well.
Yeah, and they're down there with us. They're
Ideally,
actually on the same points as us, so it's two
ideally,
games you have to be targeting, and we don't have a manager now.
Ideally, you'd like to think that they'd be in place for the Stoke game, but I'm not sure how realistic that is. But at least by the Middlesbrough game, they've got to be.
That's tricky though, isn't it? Like a Saturday against relegation. I say relegation rifle. They are 8 points lower than us Rotherham. But what I mean is like we want to pull away from that fight, and you need to win that even if it's away. We don't have a manager going to Rotherham, and then you got Stoke, who are also lower than us but on the same points as us.
Yeah, two massive games.
They're two massive games that you need to be like targeting 6 points from, and 6 points really helps in this situation. But there's no one there to lead us to them games now.
I know, but maybe that plays into it because we had Hull, Leeds away. You can kind of throw that away anyway. But Hull at home, Huddersfield at home, and then you've got
Hull and then you've got. To be fair,
no, I know, but it's still a game. I want to be winning at home. I think if you want to be any realistic,
yeah, of
even
course.
if you want to be a
mid-table games,
if you want to be a mid-table team looking up, I think but we've been quite poor at home as well. I mean,
I was just trying to say I don't put Hull and Huddersfield in the same category. Is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, fair. But I think if you look at that run of fixtures where you've got Hull home, Huddersfield home, Rotherham, Stoke, you want to be picking up points there, and I think that's probably what they've looked at as well. Is that we need a good return on these. But I fully expect, and I hope this is going to happen. But I fully expect like a reaction from the players on the weekend, because if by all accounts the players weren't happy with him, then you'd expect to see like a bit of a bounce on Saturday that they kind of let loose.
Shackles off.
Yeah. So
I did say to you I was going to pick. Did say I was going to pick the Swans in the last man standing.
I probably watch now. I'd probably be wrong, but
I'm not sure I have the bottle to do that. To be fair, in the last 6, you don't know what it's like to be in the last 6, do you?
I did. We did prove this. I did get to the final once.
Did you win?
No.
Have you ever got past the first round since?
No.
Yeah, well, there we go then. But I was wondering, there could be a good shout, but I don't think I got the bottle to do it.
I wouldn't risk it at this stage, no.
Okay, here's one for you then. What role does Paul Watson play in all of this, and how much accountability should be placed on him?
I don't know. For me, that seems to have picked up pace quite rapidly. I mean, you can criticize some of the things he's done, but there was a point in there was a point after that window shut where we were like, my God, we've got a good squad. I think we looked at it and we were like, wow, we've actually got a really good squad here. Like Patino came in, and Humphreys had come in on loan, and Key had come in, and on paper, and Lowe had come back, and people were kind of excited about that. I think on paper, I was thinking, my God, we've got a really good squad here. And then it just didn't kind of pan out, did it?
I also don't know if you can judge him on one transfer window.
No, I don't think so.
And he did bring players in. A lot of them were projects, and maybe some of them haven't worked as well as others. But a lot of people are also saying Key's been fantastic, Rushworth's been fantastic, and Humphreys has been relatively good. Lowe's been good. So like the 4 you've just mentioned, essentially, but you brought all of them in as well. So, Timone's been featuring regularly. Ashby's started picking up when he was playing. So that's 6. Some of them were brought in for youth.
Well, what were we expecting? I wasn't expecting us to sign that many players. Like, I didn't think, we were capable of signing that many. I know, you can argue it was too much, and we've just kind of thrown too many players in and brought.
Yeah, but is it too much? Because if we didn't, we wouldn't have a squad.
Yeah, exactly. But this is what I'm saying. Like, realistically, like when Ben came on the podcast, like when we were talking about the transfer window, he made a good point in saying, like, someone like Yates, for example, like if he was any better, then we probably wouldn't have had him. So I'm not sure what players we could have brought in better, if you know what I mean. Like, getting Patino on loan from Arsenal, getting Humphreys on loan.
Didn't you mention Patino?
Yeah, getting Patino. Well, people were, oh, that's a great signing, and getting Humphreys. It was like, oh, he came with all this. Wow, he's England under 21 international, and he was playing for Chelsea in pre-season. The fact that we were able to bring these players in, like, what more could we have done? I'm not really sure, to be honest.
People seem to be highlighting the money spent on Yates, Kuarovic, and Choa on as maybe not working out to what we wanted, and highlighting those things as the way the transfer window wasn't good and he's made bad decisions, but failed to sort of also realise the same guy was responsible for bringing in Patino, Key, Rushworth, Humphreys, Timon, Ashby. Like, you can't kind of praise one side and say the other side's bad. It's the same guy.
I guess you can well, it's fair to criticise if you don't think he's made good signings, but it's just like I've seen it around like social media, like people going mental, like, oh my god, like it's the worst thing ever.
They all have this narrative that he's trying to turn us into Luton, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, Luton, I mean the team that's in the Premier League right now.
And nearly beat Arsenal tonight.
Yeah, and they just conceded a 96th minute. Oh no, we don't want to be there.
It's the style of play, isn't it? It goes back to that argument with the Swansea way, and yeah,
we've talked about this Swansea way nonsense. Well, it's not nonsense. I shouldn't say that.
It's not nonsense. It's just I'm not sure how.
I'm just done with it because
I think it holds us down as much as it is nice to watch.
Yeah, spot on. It does hold us down because I know I'll die on the hill that I think Steve Cooper was the best manager we've had since we've been relegated, and people hated him. I remember the hate he was getting on Twitter, and we were winning games. All right, it wasn't pretty to watch, but there is more than one way to play football, and people are begging for football that we played 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, and I think the game has moved on. I would much rather have the day out of Wembley in the playoff final than be sat mid-table, but having 90% possession and maybe scoring a goal. And
what would you rather take, where we are now or where we were when Steve Cooper left us?
Exactly. Two playoffs. We can't. There's no comparison.
Yeah, but like the negativity left under as well. But at least the club was where did we finish last season? 5th, 4th or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, but Swansea, we'll have that conversation again. What would be the first thing the new manager needs to address?
God, I don't know. I think defensively, definitely, we've got to stop conceding as many chances as we do. That's got to be number one. I don't want to see Rushworth having to make 8 saves a game. That's got to be number one. And I was going to say before I looked at the stats, I was going to say we need to score more goals, but apparently we don't. So I think defensively we're poor, and I guess putting more chances away, because like you said, we had 4 big chances against Huddersfield, missed them all. We have had chances in games that we need to finish, and I think he just needs to address that some players probably not the right fit for what the role they're being asked to do. Yates being one of them. How can we get the best out of him? Because whatever was going on, whether he was not performing or whether he was being asked to do something different than what he likes, then I don't know. We got to try and find a way to get the best out of some of these players.
The goal scoring thing's interesting actually, because I'm looking at the league as a whole, and we are lower mid-table on goals scored. I feel like the league in general this season, maybe the defences are not winning.
Yeah.
If let's put it that way, a lot of goals seems to be being scored, I guess, is what it shows. More than maybe when we've done a comparison with the other managers, and defences perhaps are a little bit more on top. But maybe it's just the way football is at the moment, because it goes in trends and phases, doesn't it? Not many left, and then we're going to wrap it up. Actually, there's only one thing to end on. So this is a difficult one to talk about, because we kind of probably going to open ourselves up for criticism, but it's an opinion at the end of the day. But one of the comments in the tweet I put out was, what influence does the fan base, if any, had on the decision, and will any manager be able to, in commas, win the fan base over? Because and I added this bit on, it has been tricky for all of the managers, really, to win the fan base over. Going back to Steve Cooper, as we've just been discussing, even Russell Martin was divisive. There's the people that love him, but there was plenty that wanted him gone. And now Duff as well.
But I don't know. I don't know how much we can say here without getting ourselves into a bit of trouble. But I don't know. I think
trouble. It's just
we've become like I don't know if it's the same across the board for every club, but we've become a massive social media based club, if you like. Because what I see is, like, for example, and you can jump in if you think I'm wrong here, but like Russell Martin, for example, not completely opposed to the guy, but he had his faults. But the fact is, he looks good on social media, so he kisses the badge. He gave Cardiff the 4 on the weekend, which was good banter. I like that, but then it just went over the top. Like, people were literally crying with posters of him because he did
He's
that.
clever.
Very, very clever. Very good PR manager, Russell Martin, in all fairness to him. Says the right things, does the right things.
And I think he buys himself time because of it.
And this is exactly this is exactly it. I think he buys himself time. He's very good in the media. He looks good on social media. So, people can post clips of him saying like little bits what he said.
He's very
something
good at
about
speaking
Cardiff
as well, isn't he?
Yeah. So I think this is a massive, massive thing that he looks good on social media, and people kind of buy into that like craze. Now, I like it. Great. Like some of the stuff he said and did, amazing. I love that. But then you kind of got to look past it sometimes and, look at what's going on the pitch. So, obviously I'd never trade that we beat Cardiff 4 times, but the fact that he did that is like, look, he did this. This is this unbelievable thing that happened. And look, he said this one time, and look, he did this, and he had 90% possession in this game, and he did this, and he did, and it just looks good on social media. Do you know what I'm saying? But then someone like Michael Duff, who doesn't say the right thing sometimes, he doesn't look the part.
He just sees it as another game of football, but
Yeah.
says it like that, and all of a sudden it's like, you just don't, it's not as exciting.
So then he just, and again, obviously that coincides with not getting results. So then you just open yourself, like the leniency that Russell Martin had in that run, where we were just losing games, and getting hammered in some games as well. Like, it was still divided that people were just like so backing him, but because of what he says and how he says it, and I think he's very clever in that sense. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, but he called the board out, didn't he? He called the board out for the lack of transfers in January, which bought him another couple of weeks because people are like, he's called the board out. Yeah, no one does that. And he called all of the coaches together to do it in the video.
All these
he knows
big,
what he's doing.
Yeah, all these big gestures. I brought all the coaches into the press conference. And
I think
clever.
A good way to put it is social media is a massive part of it, because I think Russell Martin's clever. He's used it to his advantage. Just to compare the last two, you could look further back, but the more into the future we go, the bigger social media is going to get. So it's more relevant the more recent we go. He's very clever. He's used it to his advantage. All these things we just quoted. Whereas I think Michael Duff, maybe naively, just wants to do his job. Yeah, he just wants to be the football manager. Doesn't want all that, but unfortunately he's part of the game now, and maybe he didn't understand that, and he hasn't understood that, and that's ultimately put so much extra pressure on himself, on the players, that's resulted in the poor results and poor performances, especially the stuff he said around the Derby game. I think maybe if you go back 10, 15 years and he says the same things in a conference, most Swansea fans won't have seen. They get quoted in the paper and you read it. Maybe it doesn't read as bad. Nobody gets so frustrated. You can't voice your frustrations online because social media is not a thing. I just don't think it gets as bad as it got. And maybe the performance on the pitch is different. And the players don't realise how annoyed or don't see any of the frustration. I just don't think the frustration kind of builds either. It's like you're putting it all in a pot and turning on the gas, if you like, with social media, whereas the gas isn't getting turned on if social media is not there. So you might have that little bit of frustration, but you're probably over it in 5 minutes if it's like 10, 15 years ago.
But these things now, they snowballed, and so like I said, he started off started off wrong, made a bad first impression,
Yeah,
and
and then
it's
they went,
really
people are
hard
looking
to.
for it.
It's really hard, yeah, and it became really petty in the end, and it's really hard to turn the tide. Like people were looking for anything, like he would literally say one wrong word, and people would be like, "Oh my god, look what he said," and it's really hard to turn that tide then.
Yeah. But, maybe that's the way football is now, and you got to give credit to Martin for understanding the power of using the fans in success.
Look, it's not, it's
Um,
not, it's not, it's not, it's not a, it's not necessarily a criticism of him. It's just he's done that very well. I mean,
yeah,
if that is part of being the modern day manager, then he does that very, very well, and you
yeah.
can't argue against it.
So to summarize, like, what influence does the fan base have on this? I think they had an influence
Yeah, 100%.
personally,
Yeah, 100%.
and I think that is very clear from the statement that Coleman's put out. He's definitely taken on board what a lot of the heavy criticisms have been. And I guess the two big ones from that statement is the moving away, the not moving down your thing, and the way they're playing. And I
Yeah,
think that's, you can't not say there's not been an impact after reading that. I think it's clear to see that
I
he's
think
he's
as well.
addressing to the fans that he will learn from not acknowledging how important the Swansea way was. So there must have been an influence.
I don't know. I just thinking about this as well. This has just popped into my head while we've been talking about it, but it seemed to me as well that like last season or two, we were kind of praising the social media from the club, like saying how good it was, and some of the things were quite witty, and that kind of seems to have died off a little bit. Maybe that's gone hand in hand with, um, like obviously the results have not been great, so maybe it's not the right timing. But
Yeah,
I just wonder if like with like Russell Martin being there, maybe he was a bit more open to doing stuff. Like I remember he did the interview walking through I think is it Klein Gardens by the Woodman down there. Like he
yeah,
didn't really want to getting to know him, and that was quite good. And it's just kind of opening yourself up a bit. And they were doing that like follow player for a day. I remember like Flynn Downs did it. I remember watching a couple of things like that. Maybe it has been going on, and I haven't really been picking up on that much. But I get the sense that it's not quite been the same. So maybe that's kind of fed into it as well. Like maybe he's not as open as he's not opening himself up to it as much
I
because
do
that's just
think with I haven't seen myself either, but with social medias and stuff, when stuff's going well, it tends to go viral a bit and get shared around. And I think it's also easier to have banter when you're winning,
yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
because they were kind of bantering at other clubs on TikTok, weren't they?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then when it's not going so well, maybe those things, if the views stop coming in for it because we're not doing well, like people don't look for stuff about Swansea because they're annoyed. I think we noticed how some of our stuff when we're tweeting and putting videos up, you can tell. You look at those stuff from the summer when we had the managerial change and it was booming, and then as the season progressively kind of doesn't do very well, sometimes the views drop off, and that happened under Russell Martin as well. It was up and down depending on how we're doing. It's probably the same sort of thing maybe, and maybe the media team
Yeah,
more in the know. They know when to jump on things and when to not, because I think if they start doing certain humorous posts on the different platforms when the general atmosphere in the fan base is not there, the engagement in the comments is the wrong engagement.
yeah,
For example, like, why are you joking about this? Oh, we want him out of our club, that sort of thing, and that makes the situation worse.
yeah,
So it comes back to the question, I guess, in a way, like how much influence do the fans have? If that's the reason some of these types of content is not being made as much, then I guess they have a lot of influence because they're hiding from negativity then, aren't they?
yeah.
Protecting the club, protecting the players, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah, but I do think the fans have a massive influence. But again, like I'll go back a little bit, like to Duff, and I think probably just to add the final point on it of him being a bit unlucky. I think this has been coming for like 4 years. I think even though I don't think our recruitment's been that bad this summer, personally, like you said, losing Perot and Manning every year, we've kind of lost quality in the squad every year, and we always needed like a manager to come in and do something special, and it was always going to happen that someone was going to come in at some point and not be able to, or have bad luck with injuries or something, and just not be able to get anything out of the squad. And I think it's kind of been progressing that way for a couple of years.
You have said it a few times on you, to be fair, the more you sell, the good players eventually will stop overachieving. And you've said that Cooper really overachieved, I think.
He did.
I think we've said that. And so then I guess the question is, are we overachieving now? Not overachieving, sorry, but are we underachieving now, or are we just where we should be?
Yeah, well, this is it. This is the question, isn't it? It's like, what are our realistic expectations for the current squad, and where should we be? Because we're not a playoff team, we're not a promotion challenging team. There's no way. So where, and I don't think really we should be a relegation candidate either. So, if we were eventually to have finished mid-table under Duff, then is that kind of where we should have been? But
if you look at the teams, we said at the start of the season this is one of the hardest divisions since we got relegated.
Yeah,
the teams here,
yeah,
and we've fallen to the bottom side of it. So maybe we are where we are for a reason.
Yeah.
So you got Stoke are lower than us. Don't forget they came down with us from Premier League. Huddersfield came down the season after us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're lower than us. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not out of the question to suggest that it's not deserved based on the quality of the squad.
No, I know. Like I said, I think it's a slippery slope, and no club is immune from getting sucked into that. You get it wrong, and
yeah. So you've got Millwall is lower than us, about the same points. Coventry, who were in playoffs last year, are a point ahead. Like, it's Norwich are in 13th. They're only 4 points ahead. 5 points ahead, sorry. And they came down last season. So it's there's a lot of teams that aren't doing as well as what I think they would think they should be doing.
Yeah.
So not everyone can be in that top 6 and top half, and yeah, I think there's a lot of we're getting to a stage in football, I think, and it's the same in the Premier League, where every club thinks they're a big club in a way, and you can't all be.
Yeah, that's right.
But there we go. I think that's a good place to end. I know it's been a little longer than anticipated. It's getting late, and I do apologise for keeping you up this long, but yeah, we'll call it there. So thanks as always, and I guess on to the next chapter, hopefully the next video next week, if we get some positive news and we get a new manager. Hopefully we can talk about that, otherwise we'll see how it goes. But thanks for watching as always, and we shall catch you in the next video.
See you soon.